You shouldn't be looking at being the best technician. You should be studying business and figuring out how to make 20 technicians, 50 technicians.
Everybody, welcome to the Den. This week I have Tom Howard, president of Lee's HVAC here in Fresno. Went from doing $1 million to over $30 million in 10 years. Amazing, over 30. Multiple locations, plus he's the vice president of customer experience at ServiceTitan. Tom, thank you for being on the Den. Congratulations on all your success, man.
Thank you.
Now I gotta ask you, first thing, you buy Lee's 10 years ago. You said, right, correct?
Yeah, 2012.
And you're gonna do $30 million this year. And you told me your goal would be just to get to $3 million at one point. Can you talk to me about like what changed? Because you've done a lot more than that, and you've been doing a lot more.
I think, so many people talk about mental barriers, and I think that we grow to where our goals are, and then we stop when we hit that goal. And I think we get in our head about, what we can and can't do, and that stops us. One of the best things that was ever told to me was Ken Goodrich told me. He said, Tom, that year he bought his own private jet. And he said, I hit my last goal that I made was buying a private jet, and I did it earlier this year, or last year. And I said, really? He said, you know what I really regret? And I said, what? He said, I wish I would have made bigger goals because I would have hit them. And I look back and I remember thinking, gosh, we went from 1.82 to 1.85. Then the next year we jumped to 2.7 million. And with that big growth from 1.85 to 2.7, we could have kept going, maybe hit 5 the next year. The next year we did 3 million and 5,000. It was like we hit like right where the goal was. And it wasn't until I started seeing other people doing bigger stuff. It was actually that next month I went to visit a guy named Ben Hubbard, and he was doing 6 million. I said, oh my gosh, how long were you at 3 million? He's like, 3 years ago. I'm like, oh my gosh, I could do that. And then I went home and we started working on it, and then I started realizing up until then it was my self-limiting beliefs that kept me back.
Now, you had a partner also, correct?
Yeah.
And you said to me, I'm not here to say, talk to me about how you had to buy your partner out and why, to change your own mindset. Because I think a lot of people go into business because they feel like they need a partner. They're a little bit scared. I mean, everyone goes into business is scared. Anyone tells you they're not, they're really a lunatic. But if you have children, you're going to have a little bit of, let me maneuver this, right? So you get a partner, right?
Yeah.
Talk to me about that experience and what made you say, I'm out.
Well, there's a few set of circumstances there, but I always tell people, if you're going to have a partner, don't do it for the money. Because two things happen if you do it just for money. And this is not what happened with my partner, but if you look at a partnership, you do it for just the money. One is you could be not successful and the business could fail. And then your partner's going to be mad and you're going to be mad. You took money from them, they're not getting it back. You're not happy, you're losing everything. Now let's say you make a ton of money. Well, now money's not a problem. You got money, right? So your partner's happy because he or she's getting paid out. But are you happy? Because you don't need the partner anymore.
Correct.
You got the money. And so now you get resentful. So I would say if you have two people that bring things to the table, a skill set, whether it be technical skill sets, marketing skill sets, it's, something about licenses or something else, then there's probably a reason for that. And then you can continue your partnership in the longer term. When I had a partner at Lee's, he owned the place, so I didn't have much of a choice. It was either, I could buy it or not buy it. He didn't need me to take it over. But the thing is, like I told you, I didn't know how to fix an air conditioner. My partner, that's what he was good at. His name was Brian Lee, and he knew how to fix stuff, and he knew how to answer questions, and he wouldn't take BS from anybody. And so that worked out for a certain time period. And I think in any partnership, as you're growing, both sides have just things they need to do in their life that, move on. And for me at that point, it was the right time. For him, I think it was the right time for him, and we decided to part ways.
I definitely could see that part of it where, you have partners in other businesses now too. So you're not afraid to have partners.
No.
And it's just you feel like you need to find the right partners every single time.
Yeah, and I'd say if you are looking at partners, big things. Integrity, the biggest thing out there. There's no amount of paperwork that will keep your partner in line. So you've got to find something. I've had partnerships. I've never had a partner sue me. I've never had these knockout, drag out, people screaming, yelling, threatening to burn the building down, that kind of stuff. Never had that happen. And honestly, with all of my partners that I can think of off the top of my head, I probably have at least 20 of them by now. All of them, I could honestly say, for the most part, if we made a handshake agreement, we agreed on something, we agreed on it, and that's the end of the story.
I found it interesting when we were talking earlier, and I gotten to know you a few times you spent together. I think her name was Terry in your pest control business.
Yeah.
Correct? And you cold called her business. But
Yeah.
this is after you already owned other businesses.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me about what made you say, I want to just go cold? I thought that was interesting because I'm not afraid to cold call a business either. But you're already a millionaire. You already have successful businesses. And your mentality is, I'm going to go cold call this business. Can you talk me through that?
Yeah, this is probably going to go a way that you're not expecting. My good friend is a very high-level employee at Google, and he makes a great wage and best friend growing up. And he called me and said, Tom, the time they were having trouble having a baby. And I said, what's going on, man? It's the doctor. And he goes to the doctor. He says, no, it's pretty simple. I travel 3 weeks a month. There's like 2 days a month my wife can get pregnant. If I happen to be gone during that time, I can't have a kid. It's been like a year and a half. I said, dude, I'll help in any way I can. He's like, I just got to figure out what I got to do with my life. I can't. He lived on a pretty low wage, but he needed to make a wage and support his family. I said, hey, man, why don't we go into business together? And we always talk about opening a pest control company. I called every company in town, and no one wanted to sell to me for what I thought was a decent rate. And literally that day I get on my bike and I'm riding around and I see right around the corner from my own building at Lee's at the time. So you saw the training center today. It was right around the corner from there. I pull up maybe a quarter mile away, probably less, and it says Dustin Pest Control. And I literally just got off my bicycle. I went and knocked on the door and I walked in and I said, I would like to buy your business. Turns out they had just had an offer on the table and it was for $75,000. I called the owner and said, I'll give you $80,000. She said, well, do you want to see the financials? I said, well, yeah, but just don't take the offer you had. Like, I'll pay you. I can see that the business makes money for this cheap of a price. I'll do it. And then I got it all worked out, and I called my buddy at Google, and he's like, oh, dude, I can't do that, man. I can't leave my job. Like, I've got so much anxiety. I'm like, what? What? And he's like, I can't do it. And he pulls out. And so now I'm stuck with this business. I don't know what to do with it. So I thought, well, we should probably grow it. I mean, it was doing $400,000 in revenue at the time, and now it's doing a couple million. We haven't really focused on it all, but it turns out 15-20% EBITDA every year, just without even trying very hard. You can fit the whole price book on a 3-inch by 5-inch note card. It's up here. You saw it. Like, it's kind of in the corner. I feel like we should spend some time working on it, but I don't know. That was the story.
I mean, the guy from Google, you should have left.
Yeah, he should have. That business would be doing 10 or 20 million by now with him at the helm.
Here's a question for you, right? You take Lee's and you're going to do $30 million this year. Talk me through that journey, because people don't understand it's not as simple as you think to go from $1.5 million to $30 million in 10 years. It sounds good, but it's not that easy. You got to master P&L. You got to master advertising, logistics. Can you talk to us? You didn't know how to fix an HVAC system. Just talk to me through that process, because people are watching us own HVAC companies right now, plumbing, and they're saying, how did he do it? And a lot of people, just like me, not being rude, thought ServiceTitan was a big piece of it and that you were there for years. So I think we're going to correct that here today, if you don't mind.
Yeah, we were down at about $3 million in revenue. That's when I realized. So I think what people don't realize is you grow your company. There's different problems that you run into at $1.5 million, $5 million, $10 million. People talk about the $1 million wall, the $3 million wall, $5 million wall, $10 million wall. They know there's a wall there when you hit that level of revenue, but they don't really know why. And a lot of them has to do with when you're hitting the 5 million range. It depends. But these changes right now in today's day and age, you hit 5 million, that's when you really need some type of management structure. Before that, the $3 million wall, you really need policies and procedures to get followed in the field. So policy, procedures, management structure. At the 10 million range, you kind of need a GM, not just service managers or install managers. And a lot of times, owners take a little dip in profit right there when they hit that wall until they figure it out and then they get through it. The reality is, I didn't like telling people it's 10 years because a lot of people grow now a lot faster than that because there's tools out there that didn't exist 30 years ago. We brought on ServiceTitan at $3 million in revenue. And at the time, I mean, that was 2015, 2014, 2015, somewhere in there. We, at the time, it was a much simpler product than it is now, but it helped us with the basic tracking. Marketing was a big thing we had to do. When we grew, 1 year grew from 5 to 9.4, was like 87% growth rate. We only spent 1.8% on marketing. And it was way better than what we used to spend. And because if I could just get the marketing down, I was happier. Then they came out with automated reports and custom reports, all that stuff. And allowed us to automate a lot of things and make things happen. At about 10 million in revenue, somebody told me that, look, you can't run 10 million in revenue through Fresno. It's not big enough. I just believed him. Something I definitely say, do the math on your own market. Figure out how much you really can run. Because we're doing 30 million now, and somebody told me I could never do 10. I started consulting at that point. I was moving away from the company. What ServiceTitan allowed me to do is to run and grow the company and do these other operations without being here. So when I left to go work at ServiceTitan full time, I actually moved to LA. A lot of people don't know I live right next to the ServiceTitan building.
How'd that happen? How did you say, like, how does this go down with ServiceTitan? Because I found it fascinating, right? Like, that's like me going to work back in corporate America, like, right? Like,
yeah, it was hard. That was a hard decision. What happened was I was helping my friends out on some ServiceTitan stuff. Then they started wanting to pay me to get me to come out more. I was like, okay, so it kind of turned this like consulting thing on accident. And then ServiceTitan found out and said, hey, if we've got some customers that want some help, like, can, they pay you? I said, yeah, sure. They gave me some names and then turned into this big thing. And I realized really quickly I didn't want to be a consultant. And ServiceTitan finally called me and said, why don't you just come work with us? Now that was a hard thing. I could never see you working in corporate America.
I did for years. I'll never do it again.
Yeah, I know.
I'll never say never, but it'd be very hard to get me to go back.
It was ridiculously hard. The reality is they call me VP of Customer Experience. I don't control the customer experience at ServiceTitan. That's the thing that drives me nuts too, is like I can't control anything. I actually represent the voice of the contractor at ServiceTitan. And they said, look, we need a real contractor here. And I was like, well, okay, but there's a lot of bigger guys. And they're like, yeah, but they'll never come work for us either. So what do we do? And I was like, well, the thing is I knew Ara and Vahe, the co-founders. And I had immense trust for them. And I think what people don't realize is that they did something. Everyone thinks, oh, look at how much money they're making or whatever. They don't realize 10 years ago, nobody was investing money in the home service industry for software in any large amount. Because you know what? Everyone thought, every private equity firm, every venture capital fund, every hedge fund thought, you know what? Those are Johnny butt crack guys, backwards industry. They'll never have enough money to pay for good software. It's not worth building. You'll never have the market. Now, the thing is with software as a service, you've got to build all the features first, spend hundreds of millions of dollars, and then the revenue comes later. Tesla didn't go profitable until about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Amazon went, I don't know how many tens of years before they became profitable. R and Vi were taking every dollar. They see these guys with like, oh man, they must be so rich. No, every dollar, those investments go right into the company to research and development. It's not like they're looking to take a R and Vi or pocketing it in their pockets, So anyway, they're putting that money in there and they're building and they're going out to these equity firms and raising funds, and all of a sudden people start taking notice. Oh my gosh, this is $1 billion valuation plus. And then all of a sudden it goes, obviously it's a lot more than that now. So I'm sitting there talking to them about it, and they said, Tom, we're going to change the industry. Well, you already have. Like 10 years ago, they tried consolidation in the early 2000s. All these companies they went belly up. They were literally writing their numbers down on a piece of paper and faxing it to the central headquarters. You had companies like Blue Dot and those ones, right? It's just a mess. I mean, talk to Dave Geiger at Horizon about his experience with that, right?
No doubt.
And he got to buy his company back for pennies on the dollar because of the things they did. So bottom line is that now we have this way of operating a company nationwide. And they're like, just come with us. I said, okay, I'll work there, but I got to report to R and Vahe directly. I got to speak openly, and I got to speak like a contractor. I don't want you guys to like mute me or anything else, because I'm going to tell you how I really feel and how the rest of the contractors feel. I'm going to do everything I can to represent them.
Yeah, and I obviously watch on social media. Like, you get smashed sometimes, and they get smashed, right?
Yeah.
I don't think, and I'll be the first one to say, I think customer service should be a little bit better at ServiceTitan. I told you that personally. I think
definitely.
But outside of that, if you just compare apples to other products out there. I mean, I own a digital agency. All I do is represent contractors. About 70% of my book of business is contractors. Think about that.
Yeah.
So I know every software out there. Not everyone, but I know the majority of them.
Yep.
I feel like ServiceTitan's running a sprint in far as capabilities compared to everyone else, it's almost like walking. I mean,
Yep.
do you feel that way? Because I see on social media the blasting of ServiceTitan.
Yeah.
But I don't see a lot of people coming to the rescue that's saying, hey, listen, the implementation team, already has a hurdle there, right? So, and not to stick up for people, ServiceTitan, I always say this. I came to you personally and said, can you get my roofing company, my painting company on ServiceTitan? Yes or no?
Yes, you did.
And ServiceTitan had, I'm going to tell you this right now. I'm going to start laughing. I said, who in the world thinks they can vet me to give you my money? like that. I'm like, is this a joke? Like, you're vetting me to give me. And I had to sell myself. I was like, I'm a tech guy. Like, I would, It was fascinating to me. But you guys had so many problems with people to understand the implementation part. You have to have a little bit of someone that's going to take the ball and run with it there. Can you explain that? Because I just gave you 2 more companies because that's how much I believe in it.
Yeah. So here's the problem. Like on ServiceTitan and any SaaS company, one, customer service is a problem and it's multifaceted, and we're doing a few things that tackle it differently now because just hiring more people doesn't solve it. I told them, look, as a contractor, the first thing I did when I got there was like fix the freaking support thing so they can answer the phone. Well, now they answer the phone or the chat, whatever, quickly, but now you need people that can actually understand what to say when they're on the chat. And you got this product that's this wide, and so they got to figure out faster ways because it's really not a dispatch software. It's a marketing software, it's dispatch software, it's reporting software, it's a phone software, it's all this stuff, right? And then you can't have one person answer it. So there's things they've got to work on there, and we go into that later. But the bottom line is when you bring on a new industry and they're going to have different questions and want to use it in a different way, then now you've got second order consequences down the line on and things like support. Then you've got a whole bunch of product engineers that have to build it differently. Then you've got all these other things. And so they've been really careful in the past. They got burned on it. Really, they burned the customer is what happened. And that's why their vetting was like, look, we got to make them successful. We don't want it. We have amazingly low churn rates, which churn meaning people leaving the software. And there's certain things I can and can't say, but what I can say is that every single software company that has come to me and said, well, this is our churn rate, the lowest one is still 3 times what ServiceTitan's churn was. At least it's talked to me. Mm-hmm. So ServiceTitan's churn of people that leave is so tiny. But the reason is, and even with all the complaints about customer service and stuff, because we're trying to figure out how to solve their problems at scale, is that they've focused on plumbing, heating, electrical. Then the funny thing is, Tommy Mello did exactly what you did. He sent an email directly to Ara and said, F you, give me the software. I'm going to make it something amazing. He was $5 million in sales at the time. You don't understand what I could do with this software. Finally, Ara relented. Ara still has the email, and Tommy still has the email. Ara said, fine, we'll put a garage door company on ServiceTitan. And the price book and stuff had to be, Tommy Mello had to do some special stuff to make it work for a garage door. Sure enough, Tommy Mello probably this year is going to be about $150 million in revenue. Mm-hmm. I'm on Tommy Mello's board. I look at these numbers, I'm like, oh my gosh. When I met Tommy, he was at $5 million in revenue. I think he was actually at 3 when he got on ServiceTitan. And now there's hundreds of garage door companies on ServiceTitan. But they had to say, okay, this guy's going to go on, and then we got to figure out how to train support on how to help them, everything else. Now, it also allows ServiceTitan to grow more quickly because they can develop features specifically for this and not have to worry about all these other customers that need it in different ways. So, and ServiceTitan plans on continuing growing. I've talked to Vahe and Ara before, like, guys, do we want to slow down, do X, Y, Z, if this and that could happen or whatever. Like, Tom, no. Pedal to the metal.
It's funny because I was going through what I call the vetting process, and they were like, well, how do you know roofing will work on ServiceTitan? And how do you know painting will work? I'm like, guys, buying a shingle is the same thing as buying a Rheem HVAC. You put in the price book, you put the squares in, like pricing, it's the widget.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, how are you going to build this out? It was probably a good hour. I think you had like 6, 7 people. And I'm like, and here I am, just a digital marketer selling you guys on roofing and painting to come on the ServiceTitan. I'm like, trust me, it will work. And you guys are like, let's try it. I mean, it's the best decision I made for my companies, I feel personally.
I'm glad after that meeting with Vahe, I talked to Vahe and told him your story. He's like, look, Tom, I need like some kind of exception process that just says, when Tom stamps it and says this guy's going to take care of it, maybe he can open up a new industry for us. Because the funny thing is we actually tried roofing. That's what I didn't tell you before that. And we had several roofers churn and they weren't happy and those kind of things. We're like, look, it's probably not good for roofing. But the reality is that if you get the right person that knows how to set the standard and go in there and set it for that industry, it's like, okay, then the rest of them start looking and then they find out ways to use it.
You know, it's funny. I own an IT company. I say this to everybody. You'll appreciate this. When something doesn't work, 99% of the time, it's not the software. It's the end user that doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And when I say that to my team, they get so mad. I'll be fully transparent with you. When I bought the roofing company and the painting company this year, we grew to 10 million in roofing company, literally, that we're going to hit this year in our first year, right? And we
By the way, just so we're clear, you were $1 million
$1 million last year.
Yeah, they're 10 million this year.
Yeah,
Just
first
put
year I
that
was
in
bought in
context.
January, yeah. So, but
That took me 6 years at least, so go ahead.
So, but wait a minute, it gets funny because I know nothing about roofs. I don't know nothing about shingles, but we're using House Call Pro. And my leader, Matt, and the team, Amanda, kept saying, this doesn't do this, this doesn't do this, doesn't do this. I'm like, guys, it does do this. Like, it takes me 5 minutes to Google something, see a tutorial, and see it does it. I'm like, just go ask them, chat it. ServiceTitan's the same thing. People don't understand is all you have to do is just Google, see what it does it in a demo. And if it does it in a demo, it's just end it user error. You're not doing it correctly. And that's where I think that holds people coming back from scale, because I trust technology more than I trust people. I know that sounds crazy. Yeah. Like, I can see a report, and I'm going to give you a example. I could ask Bill Rizzo, right? He runs my sales team for OneSEO. Hey, were leads great this month? I don't know, but I can just run a report straight out of Salesforce. Bill, we have double the leads, and our average sales up 30% this month, year over year. How's it not great? Well, he felt that way. Just that's the mood he was in that day. The data says, I'm sure you do the same thing, right?
100%.
So let's talk about, you went and you bought a company in Phoenix, right? It was going under. I heard they lost $1 million the year before. Is that true?
No, cumulative losses of net losses of $1 million over the past 10 years. It was losing like $100,000 a year on $1 million in revenue.
So he comes to you and says, listen, let's do this, right? He says, let's do it.
Yep.
Talk, like you guys, I don't know if you want to talk your numbers, but I mean.
Sure. Yeah, we'll talk numbers.
I'm a number guy.
What happened there was, and that's a trust environment, because I said, look, like we did a deal together in Las Vegas. Las Vegas went, it was 3 companies that we combined. The 3 companies combined at about 11 million in revenue last year. This year we're going to do about 22. I'm optimistic. I tell everybody we're going to do 5 million EBITDA. The realist says about 4.5. So great numbers in Vegas. So I'm really stoked about that. And he owned one of the companies that we put together in Vegas. He still owns shares in that business, by the way.
So he's jumping up and down.
He's
loves
stoked.
you.
Yeah, I mean,
if he's having kids, his kid's name's Tom.
Yeah.
First kid's Tom.
Well, it's actually Brent Buckley, but yeah, then Tom. Brent is an awesome sales guy out there, by the way, in case Brent's watching this. So, yeah, but he said, hey, can we do this in Phoenix? And I said, sure. This was about a month and a half ago. We decided to go in together, but basically it's we want to work together. I think he wants to do things that fit him more, and I don't think running accounting, running finance, dispatch, any of that stuff is really his forte, and so my team can handle that. And it's a small company. He's doing like $1 million a year in revenue, but we'll see where we go from there.
Let's talk about this. Marketing, right? ServiceTitan, and I know I'm on ServiceTitan for all my companies. You work for ServiceTitan. ServiceTitan has marketing and marketing reporting, which I will say point blank, I don't think is what you can use and only use. I think you're going to find yourself left not knowing your true numbers. I showed you assisted conversions today, how things touch, and you said they're working on those things. So when they have that and they pull out, it's going to be great. Can you tell me why marketing is so important to all your companies? Because I don't think people understand it.
Yeah, I mean, well, just to clarify what you said, if you use only ServiceTitan for your marketing reports, you're not going to run very far in your business. I think some of those basic reports like call conversion rates, booking rates, all those other things, got to have them. It's like table stakes. Now, when you get past that, right now, should you be looking at secondary attribution? Well, of course. Like ServiceTitan already looks and has reports of secondary attribution for email and direct mail and other stuff. It's built into Marketing Pro. But if you look at secondary attribution for PPC, it's not in ServiceTitan yet because we can only see that last click coming in. So you should be using Google Analytics. You should be talking to your web company, absolutely. And eventually, I mean, ServiceTitan is one of 2 softwares that has a Google integration for Google Local Service Ads. We talk very closely to Google.
Well, let's just talk about marketing as a whole, just digital marketing. You know, me and you were talking today about direct mail, which blew my mind. You know, you were like, oh, I get 10 to 1 from a guy.
Direct mail, yeah.
From what's his name?
I use stochastic marketing for my,
Which I'll be
new
reaching out to
prospecting.
him. But, I mean, I thought that was amazing. But we all know the number 1 driver is Google by far, right? I mean, are you watching it weekly, daily? Talk to me the process of you watching your digital marketing and what's going on, and you know, you're spending probably the majority of your money on digital marketing.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Even though I'm spending tens of thousands of dollars a month on direct mail, I mean it's small in comparison to what we spend on Google. It depends. Am I personally watching the marketing reports daily? No. Monthly, I expect a marketing report for my team. I expect to know how much we spent on a given campaign and how much return we got from those. Basically, it's an overview. They should be coming to me saying, hey, here's the decisions we made, here's why, move on. That meeting should be, for me, 15 minutes, at least for that piece. I just want to know that they're doing their job and digging in and making good decisions. They're making the decisions when it comes to that. With this year, we'll do over 60 million over 5 locations. I will be, just to make this clear, I will be divesting in some things, and some partners will own things and that kind of stuff. I need to focus on things like my Lee's Air in Fresno. I need to focus on ServiceTitan. Bottom line is that I can't oversee all of those and have my hands directly in them, so they come to me with those. Should my ad agency be looking at daily or weekly? Yes. Should my marketing manager? Yes, 100%. At least weekly. Hopefully by the day they're looking at like, okay, gosh, I've really ramped up on capacity. I'm pretty much full. I should be turning down my ad spend or else I'm wasting money to generate more calls. I don't think people, that's something I noticed, people don't realize how much big of an expense it is when your marketing company isn't on pace and making sure that they've got those ads turned down on time. Or if it's not your marketing company, like my in-house person, Josue, that's supposed to be telling them to turn those ads down things. Because what happens is that not only are you paying the extra money for calls you can't take, you're loading up your call center. Now you've either got to pay extra call center agents to take those calls and tell them you can't service them, or you don't have enough calls and then you see abandoned call rate going up, so your calls get abandoned. Then you have existing customers that get super mad because they can't get through because your calls are being abandoned. I mean, it just leads to all kinds of problems when you overspend on marketing and get too many calls.
You know, let's talk about that. Most people don't even use the 3-day job board with their agency, saying, listen, we're 3 days out, we're 5. You know, I'm trying to make mine 5 days for all my companies. I think we talked about that, where I just think it gives you more clarity for me, you know. But you're right. If you don't have that and you're not communicating that, you're just wasting money. And the biggest thing, too, is if you get slow and your agency's not talking to you, how are you going to increase your budgets? You gotta, so I agree with you on that. Let's talk about social media. How's social media impacted your brand and your company?
It's interesting that you mentioned the word brand. We don't do a whole lot of direct sale on social media. Ishmael Valdez at NextGen, one of the things that he's told me that I thought was kind of interesting, he says, look, like I've got nets that catch fish, and those are like my direct sale ads, you know, that sell things. He's like, and the reality is we've got a whole bunch of boats in the water with nets, and everyone's just waiting for fish to come in their net and catch them. He's like, branding is like the current in the water that pushes the fish to my net. He's like, I want to build the current as best I can to push it to my net. And what he means by that is look, if I've got brand recognition campaigns out there, so people recognize who I am and they start understanding who I am, when they go to Google and my ad pops up with 2 or 3 other shops, which Google's always going to try to make as much money as they can, they're a for-profit business, I want them to go to my net and realize like, oh, that's that guy I saw. I see his trucks everywhere. I see the billboards. I see the T-shirts. I see whatever. I think social media really helps a lot in that. I think social media is actually going to be the digital billboard of the future.
Let's talk about, you have a great company culture here. I met all your people. They're very nice. We took up your whole entire day today, pretty much, which we appreciate. where does that come from? Is that coming from you? Because you're not here full time. Can you talk to me about, the company culture? Because everyone just is extremely nice here.
Yeah. Couple things. I think you saw we have like the pool table outside, the massage chairs, the gym, that kind of stuff. I think that's kind of a Band-Aid for culture. I think people see it like, oh, that must be what generates the culture. That's a small piece of it. The video games downstairs and the vending machine with the free food. I think honestly, if you have a bad culture, you put those things on it, everyone knows you're trying to buy culture, so it just doesn't work. What you need to have is a good culture, and then put those things on top of it, and it magnifies it. So the way I see culture coming is really through the people and the processes. If you have processes in your company that truly show your people that you really do care, you can go out and say, oh, we love our community, we love our people, we love everything else, we have a great culture. But then when a customer calls in with a complaint, you don't refund their money and you treat them like garbage, you turn off your phone and don't respond to their phone calls, everyone in the company knows it. Everyone knows. And then additionally, if you allow people to stay within your company that treat your customers poorly, that yell at your dispatchers. I had a guy, number one tech, calling and screaming and yelling at my dispatcher because they were supposed to put no cools on his plate and give the maintenances to someone else. We terminated him that day. And he's like, you'll never survive without me. We were like $5 million in revenue at that time. And you know what? We just did just fine. It sent a message to the whole company. That is not a behavior that we allow around here. And this is not to toot my own horn, but my sister actually works at my Vegas location. And they were having an issue with an employee that was yelling at the office staff and basically saying he didn't want to take calls after 3 o'clock or something and was going home and, this kind of stuff. And they said, how is it at Lee's? How does Tom handle this in Fresno? He's got guys like this, right? She's like, oh, he has them, but they only last a day. And that's it. We don't deal with it anymore. They're like, well, what if he's a top performer? She just started laughing. She said, they don't deal with that, period. And the funny thing is that this year I got a guy that flipped over 1.3 million, just took his spot right away, took it over. Additionally, I got a call from that guy. He's working in the fields because the next guy he went to go work for also fired him. And now he's working on a farm. And he's like, hey, can I come back to Lee's? And no, the answer is no. We just don't tolerate that. If you get that out of there, then you can have a group of people that have fun, and then you can do the cool things like the pool tables and massage chairs, whatever.
Talked about the school, what you had to do. I mean, you drained your company's money to bring a school here. I'm not being rude. You did. You said, I got to go figure this out. You're not sure if you figured it out yet. You're very honest, which I appreciate because, listen, anyone that owns businesses says they've never stepped up and swung the bat and tried to let it rip and it just didn't work out. They're a liar, right?
Yeah.
Or you're not running a good business.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the school and what you did and kind of your learning experience? Because everyone should have a school or some type of school.
Yeah, in the school, we went in and I told them, look, guys, like, talking to the general manager, and I keep in mind, his bonus is paid on the net profit of the company.
Okay.
So when I'm in LA 4 hours away, and I'm like, guys, I've done the numbers, we're big enough, we got to build our own school. And he's like, oh gosh, Tom, you think this is going to make it? I'm like, I'm not sure. He's like, well, for him, his bonus is like a big deal. For me, I'm like, I just want to try and see if it's going to work. We spent several $100,000 building out the school. You saw it. Different things. We bought tools for all the people that went through it. We have 40 people go through it in total, I think. But what happened is we got them done with school earlier than the weather came in. And so now I paid them wages to sit in my school for up to 3 months, paid for their tools, got them in the field. Then the weather didn't hit right, so I paid for months of their wages plus the hundreds of thousands of dollars to build the school. Then the weather wasn't here, and I had 150 employees in Fresno. 40 of them had nothing to do. So we learned, set up the school so they graduated a little later, figure out a way to have a retention plan, also make a way to weed them out before they get in. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we learned this year. We definitely have to keep growing the school. I've got a full-time HVAC trainer, full-time plumbing trainer. In the summer when we're busy, they both work on helping people in the field learn more and stuff like that instead of actually doing formal classes. Formal classes go September through, they went through about May this year, and then get out in the field. And we learned things like on the first group, we said, oh shoot, they're just in the classroom. Let's start putting them on ride-alongs every Friday. So I actually go to school Monday through Thursday, then do ride-alongs with everyone every Friday. So they're in a 12-week course, you get 12 full days of ride-alongs before they even get out there. And anyway, there's a lot of stuff we learned. The awesome thing is we had a very large and profitable June, which made up for my February, March, and April. So,
Do you run the school back next year?
oh, 100%. Like, without a doubt. We got it. We'll be smarter and better at it, be more profitable with it. But you pretty much, you have to.
What's your end goal? You own multiple companies. You keep growing. I think you're 38 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You're successful. I mean, at a certain point, a private jet would be nice, but that's not what you're working for. I mean, I spend time with you now. You're a family man. What's your end goal? I'm just kind of curious.
I was trying to figure out what the end goal was for the past few years, and I'm really gotten into this thing. Simon Sinek came and spoke at ServiceTitan's Pantheon, and he started saying, there's finite games in this world and infinite games. And he's got a book called Infinite Game. Highly recommend it if you haven't read it. I get no commission for selling Simon Sinek books, but on this one, I'd recommend it. And he said, look, we have finite games here. Like, finite games are like basketball. You have a beginning, an end, you have a boundary. There's inbounds and out of bounds. There's a set of rules. And everyone knows the rules, and you win or lose. He's like, but then there's infinite games. And most of what we do are infinite games. And he's like, let me explain. Who's the champion this year of career? Nobody. Who's the champion of education? Nobody. He's like, all these are infinite games, but we, because we think in finite terms, try to apply finite game mindsets to infinite games. And what happens is, usually you get this thing, I'm going to have a private jet, and I'm going to sit on the beach in Tahiti, and I'm going to do whatever. I have a lot of friends that have sold their companies for at least $10 million plus. 30 million, 100 million, 500 million, whatever, had big exits. And the ones that are happiest are still working in their company. A lot of them roll equity with the private equity group or whatever, and then they stay on and whatever. But the ones that got out completely, bored out of their minds, depressed. I got one of them, he started seeing a counselor. Someone I don't know what to do. He sold his business for $25 million. And then he made another $20 million on other investments right after that. He's got tons of money. And he's like sending me pictures of his vacations, and he's seeing the counselor in between every day.
He's
on
bored.
Zoom.
He's
Yeah,
bored.
so I think what I realized was, like, Tom, in the infinite game, you're competing against yourself over time to get better. And so I think better doesn't always mean more money. Like, I've definitely got to spend more time with my family. I've got to get that in there, but I can't let go of making things better. You mentioned ServiceTitan a lot. We've got to find a way at ServiceTitan. You said you should be able to look online and find out where to get stuff, and that's how you get better at using it. The reality is we need better ways at ServiceTitan for you to find those things more easily. I can't make the team do that, but I can advise the team on the contractor's perspective. I think at least I got to figure out a way. I really want an awesome place here where people can come to work, and I'm going to build, this year I'm going to build a financial literacy course for all of our employees. I'm going to build it into our learning management system. I thought, gosh, Tom, if you've built a company that already has a learning management system to teach them how to do HVAC, you saw it today, plumbing, we have teaching on sales training. Why can't I just add like personal finance? Why can't I add like how to get a home loan? Why can't I add all this other stuff, make it a cool place for them to like grow and start doing those things? Yeah, I could live off of $100,000 a year for the rest of my life for sure. When meeting with Tommy Mello, he was living in a 3-bedroom apartment. He had a $7 million house in Scottsdale. He's living in his 3-bedroom apartment, renting out the house. He doesn't care. I'm very much like him. I think it's funny because like I don't find people like that very often. But if it weren't for my wife wanting to live in a standard house, I would live in an apartment, no problem. And I think what really gets me going though, that gets me excited, is like, how do you make it so that those employees have something that they can grow off of? Your community really looks at it and says, wow, this company provided a level of service to our community unmatched, and we'd like to have them here and still make a profit while we do it. Great, like that'd be really awesome.
We talked about 9.1% inflation. People are seeing it. You can only give so much money out to employees. Customers are incurring the cost of goods in our industry for all home service-based business. These manufacturers, or I believe, truthfully, I'd say this right in front of any of them, they're making their own recession at this point. They're making it themselves. Oh, we can't deliver HVAC systems. We can't get this. We can't get that. And they just keep. You probably had 4 price increases in the last year, if not more.
Yeah.
How do you think the recession is going to impact our industry over the next year to 2 years? Or not use the word recession, whatever you want to call it. God forbid use the word recession.
I don't think it's gonna. I mean, I was a student of the first financial crisis. I just graduated. I was actually a mortgage-backed security analyst. So I was in there writing down our bonds as every single one of them would, tank in value. And I look back, and I don't think we're going to have a recession like we did in 2008. We just don't have those toxic assets that we had before. We aren't giving no income, no job, no asset loans to people, the ninja loans and stuff. So I don't think that's going to happen. I do think we are starting to feel it. Approval rates will go down on finance, and we'll get some higher interest rates. We've already seen that. And so what happens is we have to either convince our customers to take those higher percentage points on interest, or we have to take that out of our margin, which gets difficult. And then some people just aren't going to be able to get approved that used to be able to get approved, so we're not going to be able to do as much replacements. I was talking to Goodman Manufacturing last week. They basically said, hey, look, they are seeing, at least my rep was saying, we're seeing a lot more, was for the region, seeing a lot more repairs done and a big push towards lower efficiency equipment. It's happening, but a couple of people I talked to. One is a company out of NorCal, and during the 2008 crisis, he was in new construction, and he said, the financial crisis is happening. I choose not to participate. I was like, shoot. He just made the stand, and the funny thing is he ended up growing his company and selling it through that recession, which for a new construction company is unbelievable. Second one was actually Dave Geiger, who you know well. Mm-hmm. And he sat down, and we were sitting in Dave's like one of the kindest, most freely giving of knowledge I've ever met, right? He said, why don't you buy this company? Why don't you do that? And this is before I was at ServiceTitan or anything. And I said, I don't know. Like, aren't you worried? Like, we've been going too long, too fast as an economy. Like, what happens when we slow down? And he's like, Tom, why does everyone freak out about slowing down? And I was like, well, because we tend to lose money when that happens. And he said, look, Tom, I made the most money I've ever made during those downturns. I said, how? Why? He's like, because people are still fixing their toilets. They're still replacing air conditioners. But guess what? There's a ton of businesses going out that can't stand it, and they go for pennies. He's like, I can't wait. It was like he was excited, and I think that's what we have to do as business owners is figure out, like, how do I pivot? If you go into these things and just do things the same way you did before, you should expect to go down. And that's the way that our economy and our country works, is like we call out the bad businesses that aren't good, and they get swallowed up by the ones that are stronger, and then keep growing. So build a strong business.
I guess, on the final roar, what would you give someone advice? What would be your best piece of advice? You've overcome partner challenges, growing challenges, you name it, you've seen it.
Yeah.
What's the biggest piece of advice you'd give to someone right now that's trying to grow their home service-based business? What would you say to them? If you had one thing to say to them.
I think most people focus, I always see in all the chat rooms, he's dating me, on all these Facebook groups, right? And I always, on some of them, you'll see, on all the smaller ones, they'll be arguing about the best set of gauges to use, the best truck to use, what the best truck layout is. They'll be taking pictures of the inside of their trucks and passing around. And I tell them all this, and my people talk about it too. I'm going to be the best technician ever. So we're going to be the best, we're going to have the best business because we're going to have the best technicians. First of all, everyone in the area says they're the best. I don't want to hear it. Second of all, what's the biggest, most successful burger establishment in the U.S. and in the world?
I'm going to say McDonald's.
McDonald's. Did they do it by making the best cheeseburger?
I mean, it's a good cheeseburger, but it's not the best.
No, it's not even close. It's not even my top 10. I go McDonald's sometimes. I enjoy their French fries. Some might contend they have the best French fries. I don't know. The chicken nuggets, I don't even know if those nuggets ever saw a chicken. I mean, the reality is, but the thing is, what they executed in business. They figured out the fastest way to deliver food to people because they realized what's more important to people is not food. What's more important was speed at the time and consistency. I can get a burger in freaking Budapest, Hungary when I live there. I can get one in Fresno, California. It's the same burger. And most people would rather live with consistent over possibly better, but I'm not sure if I'm going to get a good one or not. But I know what I'm getting here. They figured out in the 1950s that was important to people. what you really need to do is learn the business. So learn to build processes that you can make 20 technicians. Learn to read your financials so you know how to see issues before they hit. Learn at least enough to ask questions about your team, because you're gonna have to hire a finance person, you're gonna have to have marketing people, you're gonna have to have CSRs, whatever. Learn enough about all those departments that you can at least sit at the table and question them and get good answers and know when to call BS when BS is BS. You don't have to be the expert in all those things, but you just need to know enough to question. You don't have to be an accountant to understand financials. But anyway, basically, if you said one piece of advice, learn the stinking business. That's what matters. Like, focus,
Well, thank you for being on the Den. I want to congratulate you on all your success. It's pretty impressive. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Keep going. I can't wait to see where you finish, because you're doing great things and people love what you're doing. So congratulations, man.
Thanks, I appreciate it.